No matter how dark things seem to be, or how desperate it seems, there is something you should know. Let the love of God still flows. God answers prayer. You need to know He's always there. When you stand in faith and pray, believing, trust in God and you start receiving, to know how much He cares. God answers, oh God answers prayer.
Jeremiah 33:3 says, "Call unto me, and I will answer thee, and I will show thee great and mighty things thou knowest not."
Join us now to hear great and mighty things that have happened in the lives of people who have been changed through our Lord Jesus as they share their testimonies of how God answers prayer.
Welcome to God Answers Prayer. I'm Linda Tiano, your host, and you know, God is constantly answering prayers. I know many of you see it every day because you're looking for it. And then maybe some of you are thinking, oh, I don't know about that. But if you will just pause through your day and just reflect on what has happened, and maybe what you're considering circumstance is really the King of the universe taking care of your life and helping you through. In 1 John 3:18, verse 20, the New Living Testament, "Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let us show the truth by our actions. Our actions will show that we belong to the truth, so we will be confident when we stand before Yahweh. Even if we feel guilty, Yahweh is greater than our feelings, and He knows everything." There are so many that have not experienced the love of Yah through the actions of others, and as a result, many walk around with guilt and feeling hopeless. None of us is perfect. Only His love brings perfection, healing, acceptance into our lives. His love comes in many ways, but Yahweh especially likes to show His love through His children. Valerie Morales has a compelling story about how life brought her not only to Yeshua, but to starting a much-needed ministry, Options Beyond Adoption. She's here to share her story with us today. We'll be right back after this. Well, welcome to God Answers Prayer. Valerie Morales is here. She's the Executive Director of Options Beyond Adoption. It's good to have you with us, finally.
Thank you.
This has been a long process, huh?
I know it has.
You got sick.
Well, and then our daughter, we were planning a wedding, and so she got married on the 9th, so.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, you know, in the opening I was talking about, so many times we think that there's no hope, there's no way out, and we try to take things into our own hands and not trusting God. But tell us about your story, because I know that your story is going to inspire people. You were born here in New Mexico, right?
Yes, I was born in Albuquerque in the South Valley, and and of course, 1976, right? And so my mother, really my story starts with my mother, because she was a teenage mom and she was forced to give my sister up for adoption. And I got to meet my sister about 4 years ago. My mom met her last year, so it was a good experience. Then she had my brother when she was about 19. And she was married at the time, different dad. And so landed up meeting my dad when my brother was about 6 months. My dad was a heroin addict. And I think that, the story is not very clear, but I'm sure he was either needing to get high or something was going on. My brother was crying, and my dad broke his leg.
Oh.
Um,
He was just a baby, right?
Yes, he was probably about 10, 11 months. And so, of course, we didn't find out till we were a little bit older, but my mom didn't find out that it was my dad until after I was born. But my dad did tell us and things like that, and it was just something that my daughter and I talked about, because when you have a lot of generational trauma and things like that, it's like, well, where do I get this anger from? Where do I get this from? And it's like really looking deep within and like where it all started. And so for me, it started in the womb, because that's where I was attacked. And I just always had this, when I turned 13, we weren't religious. We never went to church. We didn't do any of that. And I'm actually thankful, because then it gave me, I guess, different eyes to see the world. But at 13, 14, I remember, because my dad was in the military, and so, before I was born, and he had these gold Bibles that he got from Germany. And one was in English, one was in Spanish. And so I remember taking it from his room, and my dad was really faithful. I will say that. My dad prayed every night on his knees, and I get that he was on drugs, and even though he quit, it was just like a process forever. And so I got that Bible, and I just started reading it. I was just interested. It's just something, and I've read tons of holy books, Quran, whatever, just that I could get my hands on. And so I would ask my dad questions, but the answer was always figure it out on your own when it came to God and religion and those things. And it's led me on this path, right? To, because my brother's dead, my dad is dead, and it's all drug related. My brother was in and out of prison, and it was a lot of figuring out, well, why me? Why, right? You always have that, I was born in the wrong family. What? This makes no sense. And, and I could have went down that path, and it would have been, I don't know, okay. It would have been expected.
Right.
It was expected, right? So I graduated from high school, and I got a scholarship. And I remember asking, and I absolutely love my parents, because I am who I am because of them. And I remember asking, well, did you save any money, right, for me to go to school? And my mom said, we thought you were going to be on drugs and in prison. So
Oh, wow.
it just always made me strive for more, for better. And so I know my mom's proud of me now, and I know my dad would be, but it was always a struggle. It was always uphill, and it's well, I don't believe in this, and I don't believe in that, and where am I? Why is this such a question? And then I talked to a girlfriend of mine, and so I do read a lot of different things, and I still read into the Bible, and I see it differently than a lot of people, but I think that it's because of the things that happened in my life. So it's led me on a different path to being, I always say spiritual, but having a connection with the Most High, because I had to, at a very young age, even if I didn't know that's what was happening, it was there for a reason. And so my brother was in my life to help pave the way. And I always think, oh, well, my brother was almost I wouldn't say a sacrifice, but it was whatever reason he was here for, his life was nothing but suffering. And so it was something for me, and that's how I feel. And so when I started doing Options Beyond Adoption, it was why is this on my lap? Why am I doing this? And then it's just going inside and really trying to kind of sift through my family. And I was if my mom would have had an option back then where it wasn't my grandma and grandpa saying, you're gonna give away your baby and you don't have a choice, because she hid her pregnancy because she knew my grandma would make her have an abortion. And this was in 1972. So she hid it, and then by the time my grandma found out, she was pretty much due. So they had to let her have the baby. But then they didn't give her the option. They gave her up. And so I think, man, would I even be here? How would my life be if she would have been able to keep that baby? Or maybe I wouldn't be here. So for some reason it all happened and it made me here. And when I talked to, I don't know if you know Father Sanchez. Okay, so he's one of the first ones I ever talked to. And I remember I told him, it's such a coincidence. And that's the word I used. And he said, nothing's a coincidence. And then it started making sense to me little by little, because I was just like, I don't know why I'm like, but the coincidence was his name is James Sanchez and my brother is James, right? And then Juan, his church is John the Baptist, right? My dad's name is Juan Bautisto, which is John the Baptist in Spanish, and my son carries the name. And my great-grandfather was John the Baptist. So, and they were all born on June 24th.
Really?
With the exception of my son. But I gave him the name of the family as a middle name because I wanted him to carry it on. But yeah, so, and I remember sitting there telling him like about OBA and how we have guardians who are there to help moms and help them through their pregnancy and help them with the baby or whatever it is. And I was like, oh yeah, that's such a coincidence. And I was telling him about the name and he just said, no, it's not a coincidence. And so when you were just telling me about West Texas and being Texan, and then I'm there and I'm from here, and I'm like, okay, that's not a coincidence. I've had to start recognizing that it's not a coincidence.
No,
like
it's so much fun the way the Holy Spirit just drops little nuggets and things, you know,
like signs.
And those and connections and all of that. And, you know, as I was praying this morning, I was just thanking the Lord for, you know, all of the things that He does like that we never, every day something new and different, and He shows us things. So let me ask you, you talked about asking your mom if they had prepared for you to be able to go to college. Did you get to go to college?
I did, because I did get a scholarship. It was, I think it was like something to do with Hispanic, and so they paid for me to go to school, and I went for business computer programming, and I did that for a little bit. I did go to school, and then right about where I was supposed, I had about a year left, and then my dad got really ill. And so I stopped going to school and I helped my mom take care of him and things like that. And he had a 9-year battle.
Wow.
And it all stemmed from his drug use, you know, because he got hepatitis C and then he already had cirrhosis of the liver. My dad never even drank. After my dad stopped doing drugs when I was super little, he never did anything. It was just it. He didn't drink. I never saw my dad like that. So when he landed up getting hepatitis and all of this, and it was just, he had a liver transplant. It was a big battle.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those situations where you think, okay, you want your parent, right? You know, and love them, but at the same time, it's like a relief when they are gone, and not in a bad way. It's just so, it's like weird. But so I quit school so I could help take care of my dad. Worked for the city of Albuquerque. I always worked in government. So at 16, I started working for Metro Court, like pooling files for the judges to issue bench warrants. So they would hire kids from school, like to do it. And I landed up doing that. So I got to see, you know, because my family a lot on my dad's side, a lot of them are on drugs. It's that Hispanic family that, you know, that they always, typical, right? And so I got to see it through a different lens to where it was like, oh, well, I'm on this side. So everything in my life has, like, I feel like has set me up, like, to be where I'm at today. And so I worked with the mayor's office. I landed up working with the mayor's office for about, I worked for the city for about 13 years, 11 years, I think, in the mayor's office. And so I worked with the Police Oversight Commission. And so that's what I did. And the man who actually started OBA, him and his wife, I met him in the mayor's office. He was the independent review officer at the time. And so we worked together in the mayor's office, and then when my husband finished elevator school, he was like, you can work or not. And you know, he preferred I stayed home with the kids. So I was just like, oh, this is my moment. You ain't got to tell me twice. I put my resignation in. And so I've been a stay-at-home wife and mom, and it's been the best. I wish I could have done it with all my kids. But we homeschool. We do homeschool. So the last 3 we've homeschooled. And
Wonderful.
Yeah, I wouldn't change it
Well,
for
especially
the world.
for the times that we're in.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's
I have control of what they learn.
exactly. So tell us a little bit about how you met your husband.
Oh gosh, so I had a kind of a crazy life. So I could definitely look back now and see where my mom would be like, we didn't expect that. You know, I was probably 11 when I met the 2 older girls' dad. So their dad is not my husband, obviously. But I met him, and it wasn't the perfect relationship. It was, you know, abusive on both parts. And, you know, he was a drug dealer. It was just that typical life that in my family from the South Valley, like it was just okay, right? You know, my aunts had drug dealer husbands or whatever, and so it was just normal. And then when I had the girls, I was just like, this is not okay. And like the older they get, I'm gonna leave because they'll never live this. And they didn't. And so I left him, and it was just an ugly scene when I left. He tried to kill me, all of that kind of stuff, you know. And so, but I never stopped him from having a relationship with the girls. And he does a little bit, never really was a dad. And of course, you know, to get away, I probably made a really bad decision the way I handled it, but I was living a different life also, you know. If I could go back, would I make that decision? Probably so, because then I wouldn't have my children. So the way that I did that is I landed up marrying his tattoo artist and having a baby with him. And that's my 3rd daughter. And when I met my husband, she was about a year or 2, and I wasn't with her dad. It was just one of those situations. It was like desperation. I'm gonna do this to get out, and this is like how I get out, because I have to do this to myself in order to escape, right? Even if it makes you look bad, no matter what, this is what I have to do. And so I did it, and I absolutely am happy I have all my girls, all 4 of them. And then I met my husband, and he's such an awesome person. He's non-judgmental. He loves me. All the ugliness that I had to go through and all the bad mistakes and all that. And he saw past it for some reason. And we went on our first date. I met him when I worked for the city, because he's an elevator mechanic. And so he was working on the elevator, and it was just like, good morning, you know, it was kind of like that. And then we would talk a little bit, and then we landed up going on a date when he stopped working there. And we've been together ever since. And he's like my human. I'm like, you're my human. And, you know, I always tell him, you know, and I'm like, I wish I could have met you like way back. He's like, no, it wouldn't have worked out. And so I'm good with that. But that's how we met.
The whole time you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, the Lord is saying He used you to break the cycle.
Yeah. I always look at it like that. I'm like, whoa, I'm like really have broken a lot of generational traumas or curses, whatever people want to call them. I know they're traumas because I was traumatized in the womb, right? And I remember talking to the 19-year-old Evangelina. She's daughter number 3. And we were talking about it, and we have like really like in-depth conversations. And so I was like, yeah, I feel like my dad was attacking me because of these things that happened in my life. And she was like, no, Mom. She was like, what if? And I was like, whoa, right? And so she was like, what if? She goes, because Grandpa was on drugs when he done that to Uncle James. She was like, so he wasn't even like there. So who's to say like a spirit didn't come in him, because they knew you were coming through and you thought differently. She was also, they were trying to make sure you, because what happened when grandma felt that in her, you know, as a mother, if you feel something and it hits your whole body, she was like, you weren't supposed to be born. Grandma should have miscarried you with that trauma. She was all, but you weren't. She was also, it wasn't really grandpa attacking you. It was something attacking you so you wouldn't come through, and they knew you were going to make 5 more.
That's funny.
And so she kind of saw it like that, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, that's a good way to look at it. I said, because I always felt like, well, why was I being attacked by my own dad? And she was just like, you weren't. Something was trying to make sure you didn't come through.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more about, you know, this relationship that you developed with Yeshua, with Jesus. You know, because you said it's different the way that, you know, it's not like everybody else.
I
Maybe
don't
not like
know.
what church says.
Yeah, I don't
It's
know.
a relationship.
Honestly, I don't really have an answer for that, because I wasn't raised in it, so I didn't I've never pursued anything, and I can't even say like you all are like very Jesus, and for me it's different. It's like silent, it's quiet, it's
Yeah, it's different for everybody.
yeah,
It
and
really
so
is.
I don't really. I sit a lot, and it's so funny because I have a friend, and he's he goes to the prisons and he preaches there, and I am always like, I've always been like, I'm not a believer, right? And so I tell him things, right? And I'm just like, oh, well, like meditated, I fasted and for like 3 days or whatever, and he laughs and he's like, Val, you're the most non-believing believer I've ever met. And I'm just like, well, I mean, I definitely know there's a Most High. I know there's like a whole process. And for some reason, like little by little, like something's like happening for me. And
Yeah.
I don't know why. And I don't know why it's like my calling or why it's calling me, but it's so strange because all of the people who surround me, they're all Christians. And so they are just like, you don't know it yet. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're already there. You don't say it.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Well, you
like,
don't know the lingo.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
but I sit a lot, and it's a lot of self-analyzation. But for me, I know that there's something happening, right?
Yeah,
There is
yeah.
something happening, and for some reason I'm here, and for some reason all of these things are layers for me. It's like peeling an onion. I'm in my onion phase. I'm being peeled.
I use that type a lot. Yeah, we all are.
Yeah.
I mean, if we will admit it.
Yes.
Because that's what he's wanting to do. He takes us through repentance. He shows us things about ourselves, and how he wants to deal with it.
Yeah, it's like really molding me. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm being molded, and I don't know why. And I'm still trying to figure it out. But I do know that God is real. Like, I mean, come on, you know? It's like I can literally look around the world and know that there's a Most High, that there's something there, right?
Amen.
There's something that
Amen.
sustains us all, right? But for me, I don't know why. I've never been religious. I wasn't raised in it. I know that we're Catholic because, you know, my family was Catholic. I got baptized. I made my first Holy Communion. The 3 older girls were baptized. So I do know that there's always been a relationship in there, but more, you know, it was more cultural. It was a lot of cultural that it was on us. But I never really understood, you know, like, okay, well, we went and we did that, but we never go to church. And my dad just always said, you don't have to go to church. Like, God can hear you anywhere. Like, it's not a church, it's not in a building, it's in you, and you have to like kind of take the time to build it. It's not really up to anyone
A
else.
lot of wisdom with that one. Yeah. Well, we're gonna go here for just a moment, but I want to share with all of you that we do have the prayer line open, And it is an honor, it's a privilege for our prayer partners to pray with you. So whatever you are facing today, whatever needs you may have, or maybe you're just hearing this and you're going, wow, I'm kind of like that too, but I've never really been able to place it in my life. And they can share with you about how, how we actually let him know that yes, I want you in my life. I want you to sit up on the throne of my heart. And I want you to guide me. Each and every day I feel it, but I'm just speaking it out loud because our words have power. So that number to call, 505-345-4165. We'll be right back after this. I'm back here with Valerie Morales, Executive Director of Options Beyond Adoption. And Valerie, we were just talking about, a relationship. It's not about religion.
No.
It's about, and I know we talk about this a whole lot, and sometimes it just seems like, oh, it's just a mantra that people use. But no, it's real.
Yeah.
Because when you encounter the God of the universe, your life changes.
Absolutely.
And you fall in love with his son, Yeshua. And you just, everything revolves around that. And you trust him with everything in you because you've been through and you've seen him move on your behalf.
Yeah.
It's not the devil doing it.
No.
It's
I know
definitely
that.
him.
I used to use coincidence all the time. It's like, oh, that's a coincidence. And when Father Sanchez said, no, it's not a coincidence.
Right.
Then it was starting to link all the little things, right? The things that you don't pay attention to, right? Like you being West Texan. I'm living in West Texas, right? That's like most people think, oh, that's a coincidence. I don't think so. I'm literally sitting here and we probably would have never crossed paths. And here I am. And same with Father Sanchez. It was just like, oh, wow, you share my brother's name. The church's name, it carries my family's name. And here I am talking to you. And he was the first person who ever gave me a chance to speak to his congregation. Yeah. So.
And we were talking about words having power. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to watch The Chosen, and I
think they've done it so well.
It's done very well, and that's really, I think, the portrayal of Jesus or Yeshua is so like he would have been. It's not an icon. It's not this faraway God that that you.
No, he was a person. Yeah.
And so we all have the choice to allow him to sit on the throne of our hearts now and live in and through us, which is awesome because he loves us so much.
And we're going to be able to, I think people underestimate the power we're going to have when the time comes.
Absolutely.
And so I realize that. I realize a whole lot. It's just for me, it's like coming together. You know what I mean? It's coming together. Because, I had to start from scratch. Because there was no, you go to church every Sunday, there's Wednesday, or there's, because I always would hear people, especially in the Hispanic, we're from Albuquerque, South Valley, so Catholic, very Catholic. You go to church every Sunday, I have aunts and uncles, and they were there constantly. We just never did, and I don't know why we never did, right? So I never really understood it, but for some reason, even with all of that, right, I shouldn't really be interested, but for some reason it's always been, and then it's okay, well, all right, where do we go from here? Well, then you learn what the languages mean, and then you learn all the etymology and what they actually mean and where it comes from, and it's all like super interesting, and so that's where it's always
Yeah.
gotten me, right? Like a
Right.
riddle. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't mean that, or it didn't used to mean that. What does it mean? And so it took me down like a rabbit hole, I guess, if you will. And so then that's where it started. It was like, okay, I'm being shown these things for some reason.
Yeah.
Right? And so I have a girlfriend that I talk to, and so she works for CareNet. And we're not even really close. We just met through work, and sometimes I'll like send her stuff, and she's like, listen, that's too much. And even if you see it that way, it's not for me to see it. Like, everybody has a discernment, and not all of us are going to see it. And so I had to realize, like, okay, I can't, like, I guess, all over, because
Right.
then it might be too much for somebody, or you're going to look crazy, or you know what I mean? So it's like learning that balance of what you
Sure.
share, what you don't share, what's for you and what's not for
That's
others.
true. I think that's a good word for all of us. But I was just thinking about the words having power, and
And they do.
Yeshua said he was on the Sea of Galilee, and he said, if you won't praise me, even these rocks will cry out. And then you start learning. I saw something the other day about what absorbs sounds, and they retain them forever. And so, I mean, and that's the scientific part of it.
Yeah, like the whole
But by
vibration and frequency
right,
and energy.
but by faith you receive these things, and then he begins to show you, the basis for it, and it's
And then
like,
it has a ripple effect.
exactly
Right? It's like when you listen to, like, if you scream in a canyon and it echoes.
That's right.
It's the same
That's
thing,
right.
yeah.
So
That's how I feel is happening with me. It's been
Yeah.
like a ripple effect. It's like little by little, and the man I work with Options Beyond Adoption, he's like, I don't know, he had this dream, and he's like, it's you. I don't know why, but it's you. This is you. We're here to help you, see it, and little by little it's happening for you. He was all, and even if I'm gone, he said one day you're going to be like, I know that you're here for a reason. And I was just like, I guess I never really thought about it like that. When you're a kid or you're living a different life, you never think about those things. And then it's like, when I started doing OBA, it was like, well, why am I doing this? Where's that? Because there's so many people that are Christian, and the whole pro-life movement, and so I was always someone who was like, well, I'm a pagan, or I'm this, or I do that, and and I still follow like traditions of my ancestors and things like that, but it was like, well, I don't understand, like, why do I keep having to come to these places or whatever? And so then I understood, it was like, well, why are you pro-life, right? Why are you pro-life? I would get asked that, if you're not. And I said, well, because if I look at the world, there's a natural order, right? And so whether you're raped or whatever it is, and there's another human in you, that you don't get to make that decision, because it's different. It's a different life, and the natural order says that has to be here. Whether it was an ugly thing that happened, and for some reason it happened, and that person is supposed to be here, right? And they're just like, well, no. It's like, well, how do you know that person's not going to cure a disease that you have?
Exactly.
How do you know it's not your next healer, your next prophet? Like, you don't even know what you're killing. And most people who have really bad trauma, they tend to have different gifts. And so I don't think, people try to wipe that away. And I'm like, listen, I was traumatized in the womb, and I had to learn how to fix that as an adult after I had kids.
Right.
And so it's like, how do you know that person's not going to be there to help you fix what's broken in you? And you're just going to...
I've heard stories of several, people that have been used mightily of God, and their mothers almost
aborted them.
but chose at the last minute, said no. And, and where would we be, without the teachings that this one person in particular has brought forth, I mean, the Lord has given him an anointing to be able to speak things where people can understand it. And I was like, wow, so yeah.
And some people will never understand.
But on the other hand, there is forgiveness. There's always forgiveness.
Absolutely.
So,
and honestly, I feel like I think for people to be able to do that, at least for me anyway, it was more like having to learn how to be okay with myself, like almost like self-forgiveness, right? Like for all the whatever, when things you do when you're young, and like all these decisions you made, right? Like it's having to acknowledge that you made those decisions and you have to fix it.
Yeah.
You have to be the one. And if you don't, if you don't forgive yourself, you'll never be able to forgive other people. And I think that's what people miss, is like it's okay to like forgive yourself and be okay with the ugly decisions you made, because for some reason it's what shaped you.
I mean, we forgive ourselves because he forgives us. If he forgives us, then far be it. He created us. How can we not forgive ourselves?
So if you're like loved by, the Most High, right, by God, and you hate yourself, it'll eat people up, and that's where you see people on drugs and all of these, because they're trying to like mask all of that. And it's like it's okay if your mom was this and you made bad decisions. Like even though all of that, it's like you can still say, I'm going to make a different decision, but it's going to start with loving myself and understanding that, because it's like, okay, you're supposed to love other people, right? And that's the main thing. But you can't love other people if you can't even love yourself. And that's what people miss, right? Because they can say, I love everybody, but I don't love myself. I forgive everyone, but I don't forgive myself. Well, then you don't. You have to do those two things for you before you can do it for other people.
Absolutely. So how long have you been doing adoptions beyond,
Options Beyond Adoption?
Options Beyond Adoption.
So I started in 2017.
Okay.
So the way that came about is Jay and Gia, I love them. They're amazing people. And so I worked with him in the mayor's office, and I hadn't talked to him in a few years after he moved back to New York. And so he landed up calling me, and they were here in New Mexico. We lived up near Durango, Colorado at the time. And so he called me because I had sent him an email to check on him. And I was like, how are you? Like we would every now and then. He gets a hold of me and he's like, I want to talk to you about something. We're going to drive over there. I'm like, it's like 4 hours away. We like driving. We're going to go over there. So we have lunch, and so they give me all the stuff about OBA, and so they hadn't been able to get people to sign on and get the papers, and he asked me to be the executive director. I told him no. I said no. I said, I'll sit on your board. I said, but I don't have that kind of time, and I don't really want to do it. And I'm being real. I said no. And so he said, all right, that's good enough that you're going to be on the board. And so I get board members, and then we file with the state, and then all of that. Get an executive director. Didn't work out. Her heart just wasn't in it. And so she moved away, and she has a beautiful life, and I landed up being the executive director. And so my husband's like, he came to you because he wanted you to do it. And I said, yeah, but I don't want to. And my husband said, you're going to land up doing it. And then here I am.
Sure enough.
And so it was real like, oh, well, why is abortion? I've never had an abortion. Why do I have to like worry about this? Or why is this on my lap? And then it was when all that internalization started coming a lot more hard, right? Because I had already internalized a lot of my life, but then it was really, why is this on my lap? Why do I want to help other people like save their babies. All of a sudden it just became a thing for me, and I took classes through Heartbeat International to learn more about an abortion. And it was like, whoa, what? They're killing babies all the way to 9 months in New Mexico? I mean, I didn't even know, and I was from here. And so it was just like, okay, well, why is this on my lap? And why is this? And why? And it just was like, I don't know, like a flood. And then it was like, wow, my brother, my mom, right? My brother was in foster care because they took him away from my mom for a year. And it just was all of that. And it was like, you know, other decisions could have been made, and maybe if there were people out there to help her, and like maybe if, you know, I always feel like, you know, because you see young girls get pregnant and they're like, oh no, you're not good enough to be a mom, you need to have an abortion. Well, how do you know that baby isn't there to change her life?
That's right.
Or to, and make her say, you know what, I'm gonna love this baby so much, I'm not gonna do that no more. Or how do you know that's not her way of being saved? And you're taking it from her, and then you're telling her she's not good enough, and then she has all these other mental issues that come after, and then she spirals down more. And how do you know that baby wasn't going to help her spiral up? And so it was really a lot of internalization, looking at my own family. It was just, and so now we are helping that refugee, and I don't care where she's from. I don't care where anyone's from. It's like, if you're going to be a mom and you need help, our job is to help you, because how
life
else?
is life.
Yeah, how else are you supposed to be a good mom if nobody teaches you, and you're told you shouldn't have babies, right? And being raised here, very Hispanic community, you know, it's like you get put on birth control because you don't, you know, right away at a young age, and all of these things. And it's because, well, you don't want your kid to have a baby at 14, right? And so it's like you get on that, and you know, they had clinics in the schools when I was going to school, right? Like to do gynecology stuff. And so it was a lot of looking back at all of that, and it was just like, oh, that's why I'm doing OBA, because I'm like gonna help moms be moms.
Well, we're gonna take a little stop
Okay.
right there and come back, because I want you to explain when we come back about how this organization actually works.
Works, okay.
Yeah. So we've got the prayer line open, 505-345-4165. Give us a call, and we'll stand together with the Word of God for you. You know, when you read the Word, and I truly believe our Father loves us to recite it back to Him. And so when He hears that, things change. So call us. We'll be right back after this. Well, welcome back. Valerie Morales is here with us, Executive Director of Options Beyond Adoptions. And Valerie, so we've been talking a lot about how you got involved, and so can you tell us how the organization works?
Yes.
What happens?
So what happens is, so if we have a mother who decides, you know, she doesn't necessarily want an abortion, but she doesn't necessarily want to give her baby up for adoption, she will take the baby in, the guardians, and they're temporary guardians. It's a temporary guardianship. Mom is in total control. Mom can cancel the guardianship anytime she wants, but if mom needs to go to rehab, let's say mom is on drugs, and most women who are going through all of this, and it's not usually a good situation. And so if she needs to go to rehab and she's going to be gone for 2 months, well, usually there's no one there to take that baby. You know, not all these women have family, or, you know, that.
And you don't want them in the system.
No, you don't. And so if you're able to say, I'll take your baby while you go get your life together, and when you're ready, you can have your baby back. And that's really what it is. And so I did bring a folder, but it, you know, they have to go through a process. There is a vetting process and all of that, you know, to get these guardians on the list of life, because that's what I call it, is the list of life. And so I'm on it, you know, and there's a few people on it, and it's like we'll take the baby in while mom finishes school, while mom gets her life together, whether it be rehab or whatever. Even if she just is like, okay, well, I know that I don't want to have an abortion, but I'm not quite sure about adoption. I need time to think about it, but I don't necessarily want to have the baby with me. We'll take the baby while mom figures it out. You know what I mean? And then when mom is ready to take the baby back, she can have her baby back. Or if she decides she wants to give it up for adoption, that's her right, you know. But at least we've saved the life. At least we've been able to say, okay, we'll take the baby in, and you can have that time, so that way you can do it.
So is there also a place where guardians actually model how
Yes.
to take care of a child?
So they're
and
also
nurture them?
mentors. Yes, so they are mentors. So they'll get mom in, help her get into the services that she needs, right? Whether it be going to like a pregnancy home like Casa de Mariposa, or, you know, getting them in contact with people like Project Defending Life or CareNet, or helping her figure out how to get her GED through YDI, like leading her into that direction, like, okay, these are places that can help you, and we can mentor you to do that. You know, if you don't know how to cook food, you know, teach her how to cook, and it's like a true mentorship. And what we do is we try to get them while they're pregnant, so that way by the time they're ready to have the baby, then they don't need us. My goal is that they don't need us. Does that make sense? My goal is that they don't need us, that we do such a good job that they don't need us. That's my goal.
That's great. So how many mentors do you have?
Okay, so I should have. So I know it's me and my husband, and then we have Jay and Gia, Rick and Rita, and we have some other people who have applied, and so they have to go through all of the vetting process.
So
there's background checks, like all of it.
So people from anywhere can get in touch with you.
Anywhere.
And then you will work within where they are. Okay.
Yes. So we're based out of New Mexico, and then of course we're starting our second chapter in Midland, Texas. We already have a board. So this coming year, we're working on getting all our paperwork to have it in Texas, but I don't care where these moms are. They can be anywhere, and we will find people to help them wherever they're at. That's my goal, is just being able to help moms across the board.
So if there's somebody today that's listening and they're thinking, well, I could do that. I'd like to, you know, and to be trained or whatever they need to go through.
Yes.
Because like you said, they have to be vetted.
They absolutely
you want good
do.
people. And so how do they get in touch with you?
So we do have a website. It's optionsbeyondadoption.org, or they can call 505-974-0088, and that is a direct number to me or our president, Rita Rodriguez, and one for me and two for Rita, and they can talk to us. And so it comes directly to our cell phones, and so we'll answer and help them, whether it's helping them find another service. We've even had, we took training to help heal after an abortion, to help women do that.
Okay.
And so we've even had people call and do that. And our third oldest daughter, Evangelina, her name is Evangelina, she's our digital marketer. And so we have her involved, and so she's really great because she has ideas for the younger girls. We have Anna, who's younger, and so they're really about really changing the minds of the generation, because they can, you know.
Yeah.
They really can, and so we have her involved. So it's becoming kind of like a family thing. My husband sits on the board, and so it's like kind of.
Well, you're all in agreement.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
That's what's wonderful.
That's one thing. You know, I always tell people, and I try not to argue with people who are, you know, on either side, but I always say, my 5 against your 0. Just remember that.
You know, I was thinking about the fact there's other mamas like you that have had multiple. They just love kids. They, you know,
I didn't plan on having kids.
and they know how to deal with, you know,
Yeah, I don't know.
large numbers. And then when they have an empty house.
Oh,
they
I'm starting
feel-
to feel that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, you know,
I'm definitely starting
and
to
maybe
feel that.
grandbabies haven't come along
we
for
have
them to
2.
nurture, but
We have 2 grandbabies. They live here, but yeah, we're starting to find that out, you know. And I think it's different for moms than dads because my husband's like, yeah, right, like empty, and I'm just like, oh, what am I gonna do with myself? I'm like, stop
He's like,
growing,
"Give your
everybody.
attention to me."
Yeah, and I do. He gets all kinds of attention, but I'm just like, I miss my little ones, but. Yeah, my goal is to help moms all over because if somebody would have told my mom, you know what, there's somebody that'll take your baby until you don't have to be homeless. We're willing
Yeah.
to even take you in and help you
Yeah.
to help you get where you need to be. And so that's what I want. I don't ever want anyone to feel like they're forced to give their baby up. That's just not, I don't know. I always feel like women are special, and they've forgot how special they are.
true.
They've
True.
totally forgot how special they are.
Well, we look, I mean, there seems to be an effort to make women
Right,
not feel special.
Yeah, or we're so special they want to be like us.
You
I don't know, but
I mean, we are the only ones that can truly give birth to
Yes.
a new
I always
creation.
have told my girls, I'm like, we're the only ones who bring from the spiritual realm into this realm. So remember it's not something to frown upon. It's not something that's like, you know, procreation. Don't even look at it like that. You literally bring from one realm to another. Like we literally do. That's who women are. And
Yeah.
they've like forgot how special it is to be a mom. It's a burden. It's a this. And I'm just like, man, I look back at my life and I think, you know what? I could have never had a career. I could have never, and I could have been like my grandma and been home and farmed and made food and made medicine and all of those things and been a mom, and the world would be a better place because
Absolutely.
it's in the moms. I mean, dads are incredible and they need to be there, and they play a very important role, you know, in raising their family. And it's like the whole family unit has been broken. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, we got to kind of fix that.
Yeah. Well, the nurturing element of it, and there's so many out there, I think, that were never nurtured.
No.
They just were brought forth, and
Yeah.
you know, there wasn't this. I don't know. It's just like,
There was
okay,
no-
go do your own thing, and
Yeah,
And-
it was like I have to, I work, I'm going to school, I'm this, I'm that, and it's like, well, there's a child, and it's been, I don't know, it's just been really ingrained in people that you can only have one, and I'm like,
Yeah.
listen, I had 5 kids. And I had to leave school to help take care of my dad. But then eventually, while I had 3 daughters, I got my cosmetology license. I'm in herbal school right now to be certified. I'm like,
Good.
just because you have children doesn't mean your life stops. That's
No,
all a
no.
lie. Like actually, they give you motivation to even make your life that much
Yeah,
better
yeah.
because then it's going to be better for them.
that's right. That's right.
And so it's like these women have forgot that, and so then they just are stagnant. And I want to help them see that they're more than a degree. Like you can have both. You
Yeah.
really can.
Well, I'm glad that you came to the place in your life that you realized that you were born for such a time as this, that you were born to break cycles and to create new cycles of
Yes.
life and wholeness, of nurturing, of love. You know, unfortunately, when people are caught up in things, it's hard for them to really know how to love. And every child deserves that wonderful love.
Yep.
Of a
And that's why I always told my girls, look in the mirror every morning and tell yourself that I love you. Say, I love you with your name behind it.
Yeah.
And there's power in that. just like
Oh, there is.
and when you start loving yourself that way, you can love other people, even the people who have hurt you. It's like all of them were in your life for a reason, to bring you to that moment, right? And so I always try to remember that, because I really feel like there was a point in my life where there wasn't no self-love, and I can look at my decisions and the people I surrounded myself with, but I never did drugs. I always knew that I didn't like drugs, and it just was, when I should have. And so I always had that. It was like, okay, and I started telling myself like good things, because if you talk bad to yourself, you're going to talk back to people. And so it's like a whole circle. And so it's like, wake up every morning and say, I love you, to yourself. And there's actual power in that.
You know, I do the same thing. And it's like, but you know, and I was taught that, you know, somebody brought that to my attention.
Nobody taught that to me.
Because it was like, but what I did realize is that when I did that, it was his eyes in through me, looking back at me. So being able to see myself as he sees me, and he says, you're beautiful. I love you.
Well, because ourselves usually look, and I think when you understand, right, that it's all in you.
Yeah.
It's really strange, because, you know, this whole time you're just like, oh, I'm this, I'm that, like, you know, and then people think, well, you're self-talking to yourself. So if you change it, and you look at yourself in the mirror, like literally, don't just look at yourself, look in your eyes.
That's right. It's very important.
Yeah, it's very
the
powerful.
The light of his presence
like,
looks right back at you. Well, I'm so glad you finally got to make it to share with us. This was well worth all that.
Thank you.
struggle, and I want to encourage you, all of you that are listening today. Number one, please pray for Valerie and her team for Options Beyond Adoption, and see what the Lord shows you. And if you are hearing that maybe you're supposed to be involved in some manner, because obviously you need people in Texas, you need people in New Mexico, and you're going to be needing people
all over.
And so give them a call and get to know them, and find out what all's involved with that. And again, your website?
Optionsbeyondadoption.org.
.org, okay. All right.
Thank you.
And so today, as we're sitting here, I just want to say to you, as we've been talking, and we've been talking about the relationship. So many times we come into faith because it's just something that we do. It's religion. But he wants to have a relationship with each and every one of us. He wants us to know his voice and to really know his face. So today, will you ask him and say, yes, Lord, I want you to come and sit on the throne of my heart. I want you to be a part of my life. I'm saying yes to you today, because it is our decision to do that. So if you are wanting to do that and you need to talk to somebody about it, give us a call. And as we leave, I want to say the high priestly prayer over each and every one of you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you his everlasting peace. Shalom, shalom.